Joe Biden ends the week as he began it as president-elect of the United States. But that status was given critical new recognition this week by some Republicans, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
The Electoral College has spoken. The president-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the vice president-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris.
After the Electoral College affirmed his victory, Biden used the moment to call for unity and denounce the president's conduct.
It is my sincere hope we never again see anyone subjected to the kind of threats and abuse we saw in this election. It's simply unconscionable. You know, in this battle for the soul of America, democracy prevailed. We, the people, voted. Faith in our institutions held. The integrity of our elections remains intact. And now it's time to turn the page, as we've done throughout our history, to unite.
Turn the page, and this all comes as the country continues to reel from that pandemic, as Congress negotiates over spending, and as federal officials express alarm about Russian hacking. Joining us to discuss these issues are three of the nation's top political reporters. Rachel Scott, White House correspondent for ABC News; Jonathan Swan, national political reporter for Axios; and Susan Davis, congressional correspondent for National Public Radio and co-host of the NPR Politics podcast. Jonathan, take us inside the White House tonight. How is the president handling this moment?
Well, it depends which part of the moment you want to talk about. I mean, he is completely fixated still on grievance and wanting to, being upset with people like Mitch McConnell, who he thinks are weak, who he thinks aren't sufficiently fighting for him. He's, spending most of his time thinking about the election and thinking about how to spin that he's still in with a chance and how to show his base that he's still fighting with them. He spends virtually no time at all thinking about COVID or many of the other things that are roiling the nation right now.
Sue, when you heard Majority Leader McConnell acknowledge the political reality, was that partly about the upcoming Georgia Senate runoff elections and getting Republican voters to get out and vote in January?
Yeah, I mean, I think every calculation Republicans are making right now, and Democrats too, is about these Georgia special elections. Most people I talk to give Republicans a narrow edge as sort of the home team in both of those races. But, if the Senate were to change hands, that completely scrambles every calculation we've been making about the Biden administration. And I think McConnell's fear as we go forward into January, where Congress still has to certify the Electoral College, is he's trying to get in front of any situation in which the Republican Party could be divided. They're probably going to have some drama on the House floor, certainly among the president's House allies. But Mitch McConnell's been talking to Senate Republicans and saying, don't agree to these objections. Don't be part of this circus. And the fear is that it's going to look like there's Republicans who are for Trump and against Trump, and that could have some ripple effects throughout the party. I'm not as certain as Mitch McConnell hopes to be that there aren't going to be some Senate Republicans who are willing to sort of engage and cause some disruptions around certifying the Electoral College vote. I think there's still a lot to be said about being a Republican who looks like you're fighting really hard for Donald Trump, especially if the president doesn't relent, and there's no suggestion he will. And that's a pretty enticing political prize for a lot of senators who may be looking at themselves and thinking they might want to run in 2024 and say, nobody fought harder than me for Donald Trump.
Rachel, what are you hearing on that front? You could see some political theater on January 6th if a House member and a senator unite and try to object to the Electoral College. But we also saw this week the Attorney General, Bill Barr, decided to exit his post, leave at the end of this month. Are we hearing from your White House sources about a possible special counsel to look into Joe Biden? What's going on beyond the Electoral College?
Yeah, well, we know that that's what the president wants. He wants the focus to be on Joe Biden, on Hunter Biden, of course. And I just want to sort of underscore what we were getting at earlier when it comes to McConnell. I mean, this came 42 days after the election, more than 30 days after the race was called. So while we could see some Republicans try to cause a little bit of a disruption on the House floor, the bottom line here is that the Electoral College cemented Joe Biden's victory, and Joe Biden will be the next president-elect of the United States, excuse me. And what we saw from him this week was just a line-by-line takedown in his speech of the president's failed effort to try and overturn the results of the election. But sources that are close to the president, sources at the White House, tell us that we could be expecting to see more pardons. We know that the president is considering that. He has issued about more than 100 appointments in his final days, and that is a sign that the president sees the writing on the wall, that he sees that his time in office is limited.
Jonathan, can you add your reporting on the pardon front? What is going to happen?
Yeah, well, the plan this morning in the White House at a very senior level was to announce more than 24 pardons today. But given the hour, I don't know whether that's going to happen. So, you know, I actually can't tell you. I've been trying to find out what the deal is. Obviously, they've been delayed to some extent. I was told that they'd be out by now. So we'll find out. Maybe they'll be announced. For the ones that were supposed to be today, I was told that to expect. I was like, are these going to be more of the Jared Kushner criminal justice reform genre, or some of the more controversial friends and allies of the president? And this person sort of laughed somewhat nervously and said, you might find some things controversial. But I was told that not to expect Paul Manafort or Julian Assange in today's batch. But again, this is moving. This is such a fluid situation. I'm hesitant to even say that, because you've got President Trump. This is one of his powers that he can exercise on a whim, and he can change it. You know, you saw what happened with Michael Flynn, which we reported, you know, the day before or 2 days before he was going to do that. So one thing I have been told is that there is a push on the right for him to pardon Edward Snowden. I'm told that's unlikely. There are people around Trump urging him not to do that.
Well, Sue, on Capitol Hill, are some Republicans urging the president not to do that, not to issue this flurry of pardons in the final days?
You know, I think Republicans in Capitol Hill gave up a long time ago thinking that they could have much influence over the president. I think that it depends on who it is. And to Jonathan's point, if he were to go so far as to pardon someone like an Edward Snowden, that would be incredibly controversial. I mean, I think any pardon at this point in administration would be seen as controversial, but not only broadly controversial, but that is someone that most people in the Republican Party would tell you that they have absolutely zero support for a pardon, and would once again be jamming members of his own party to decide between talking about what they really think and believe and siding with President Trump.